We've made the stage a bit big for them. Come on. Woo! Put it in, guys.
There we are.
Thank you.
It's our exercise for the day, Rebecca.
Isn't it? Yep.
Yep. Rebecca, welcome to Evoke.
Thank you so much, Tim. I mean, what an incredible crowd. I think we've got the just before morning tea slot. And can I say that it's worth hanging in here just for 5 to 10 more minutes to hear this great session. So
right,
I think you should all give yourselves a bit of a round of applause for looking so fabulous this morning and being here in Perth. Yeah?
Rebecca, this feels like a really important conversation to be having right now. To some extent, we could portray agriculture and mining as sibling industries. They grew up together through Australian history, always mainstays of the Australian economy. Sometime around 1970, mining started to outgrow agriculture. And today you're very much the big brother of those two, with exports around 6 times what agriculture produces and earnings up to tenfold what agriculture produces. And anyone who's grown up with an elder sibling knows we love them, but they can be difficult to get along with sometimes. And
well, it's going to be fun for us, isn't it, Tim? Because I am an elder sibling in my family.
There you go. And I'm the well-adjusted middle child.
There we go. It's great.
Yeah. So when siblings compete for things at home, Big Brother often wins out, and for agriculture, that can often feel the case. Mining can pay more for land and for labour. And sometimes when big siblings do well, it can feel harder for the little sibling to do well, and eras of mining booms can be associated with high Australian dollars, high wage rates, higher bulk freight rates. But amongst that competition, the industries are fundamentally very similar, and there are opportunities we share and challenges. So we thought it was very important to bring you in today to discuss what those shared opportunities and challenges are, and how we can create a future where both siblings can succeed, not just by their own standards, but by the standards of our community as well. So perhaps for those outside Western Australia, you could start by giving us the broad brushstrokes of the Western Australian mining industry.
Thanks so much, Tim. It is my great privilege to join you here today in my capacity as the Chief Executive Officer of the Chamber of Minerals and Energy in Western Australia. The Chamber is a membership-based organisation, and as it talks to, we support the companies both in an energy sector and also those in the minerals environment. And we can see the importance of both of those areas coming together. Last year, we delivered more than $99 billion worth of economic activity either in Western Australia or for the nation. And we employ directly 70,000 people here in WA. And across the country, we employ around about in indirect services another 500,000 people. So to your point, Tim, it is a really expanding, growing industry, and one that has contributed to the West Australian economy, but also that of our nation for many, many decades. It's innovated, it's grown together, it's gone through looking at how we can best support the needs of our community, much like the agricultural sector as well. I'm a country kid who grew up in the wheat belt of WA, so a really strong synergy for the reciprocity that both of our industries bring together. And it's great to be able to have an opportunity to talk to, as Kathy touched on, the communities that we can build and the curiosity that we can bring together around what our shared skill base is.
Yep. And Rebecca, for those outside Australia, the commodities you're mining here, iron ore, gold.
We are resource rich, Tim, a real incredible place at Western Australia. We actually have all of the rare and critical minerals required for electrification, everything from cobalt to lithium. We also have rare earths, we have nickel, we have iron ore. We also have in that an incredible gold industry. We have a very strong oil and gas industry. And all of those components come together to deliver the important energy sources and minerals that are required. I love to talk about, we've got the iPads and the iPhones in front of us, and first, before we managed to actually have these sit in here, they were minerals that came from the ground here, mostly in WA.
Yep. So just to set the scene for some of the shared challenges and opportunities, like agriculture, largely a commoditised industry.
Yep.
export orientation, or approximately how much of your product is sent offshore from Western
So
Australia?
about 3/4.
About 3/4. Yeah, not dissimilar to agriculture in Australia. China-centric, what share of your exports are heading to China?
Yeah, it's a great question, and obviously the iron ore are predominantly heading towards China, and a really big part of the way in which we've been able to build the key infrastructure across the globe.
Yep. A significant interface with land and water,
Absolutely.
and a significant footprint, including emissions, which is part of our shared challenge.
It definitely is, and it's great again to hear the speakers this morning talk about the significance of decarbonisation, and it occurred as we were talking about the importance of talking to the technologies that we're both utilising as industries to reduce our carbon footprints. I always give a bit of a shout out to Ben McNamara at the CBH group. He kind of shares that actually agriculture was the very first to utilise remote technologies and automation. As many farmers would know, being able to use tractors to do GPS seeding and harvesting has been occurring for many, many decades, way ahead of us on our remote mine sites. So I think it's an important synergy to sort of show how we can share those technologies together and how we can use technology to be able to assist in our decarbonisation efforts. But certainly expectations across the world and in our own communities around our ambitions here in Western Australia for the reduction of emissions for 2030, and then of course the Paris Agreement internationally for 2050.
Yeah. So I want to ask you a bit about target setting. Australian food and agriculture is at a point where most companies have committed to net zero by 2050,
Yep.
Have made ambitious targets around scope 1 and 2, and are now on to the phase of measuring scope 3 and working out what sort of target they can meaningfully set and have some confidence around meeting it. Where is the mining industry up to with regard to scope 3 targets?
So we are working very closely to understand how we can achieve that additional reduction across those carbon emissions. Obviously, the scope 3 are the most challenging, and the very significant, important part around the application of many different tools to apply for that decarbonisation effort. So everything from carbon capture and storage to the utilisation of more solar and wind-powered energy, again for everyone, and it's so great. I heard Kathy say 19 countries, 1,000 different delegates here today, to be able to share that Western Australia is very geographically rich, but population poor. So we're a big, vast state of 2.5 million square kilometres, but only 2.5 million people, and 2 million of those live within the West Australian metropolitan area, 500,000 of those living regionally. So you can appreciate that as we look to how we can reduce those carbon emissions and the types of industries that we have 2 significant power grids, one in the south and one in the north, and it's the north that we're very much focused on being able to provide much more renewable energy as part of that scope 3 reduction.
So should we be setting scope 3 targets? Because there are a lot of innovators in the room who are working on technology to reduce emissions, who are keen to see the stake being put in the ground to know industry is serious about that. There are a lot of investors in the room who are keen to back those but want to make sure industry is serious about that. Should mining be announcing scope 3 targets?
Industry has demonstrated its absolute commitment to the reduction of emissions. Indeed, in the absence of many other public policy settings, industry has led the way in really being able to set their own targets. We have very significant investment and shareholder bases and communities who have high expectations of us, Tim. I think it's one of those pieces that just applies on an individual type of basis. Many of our companies already have very ambitious plans for decarbonisation, and I think it's important to be able to give the opportunity for industry to look to see what it can achieve, but indeed to be able to talk about that as a whole community.
Yep. More generally, agriculture is gripping at the moment, or grappling with the issue of there are lots of aspects of sustainability and lots of great progress being made in agricultural sustainability. Finding a way to define that for people downstream in a way that's meaningful and that they can understand can be difficult, and there are lots of different accreditation schemes being developed, some of which are being challenged around the validity of it. How does the mining industry define and speak to its downstream industry about sustainability?
You know, it's a great question and very topical at the moment around ESG credentials. So again, that environment, that social and governance components of how we want to build and maintain a sustainable industry. Obviously, there are many global agreements around the expectations for an ESG environment. However, what we're not seeing is that replicated in the pricing protocols, still seeing that commodities are being purchased at the best possible price, not necessarily recognising the ESG credentials from which they're coming to. So it's a great topical question at the moment, because what we do need to be doing more as an industry is a lot of the work that agriculture has led. So the wool campaign, the buy local, the investment in brand building, we as an industry need to look at that credentialing, as you say, to be able to really demonstrate how the environment has been looked after, the health and well-being of our team members, our occupational health and safety, and of course that social investment component that industry has well and truly been able to continue to deliver on. We do need to do work to really recognise, credential that ESG, to be able to say how this was procured. Increasingly across the world, just like in agriculture, the provenance of that product, of that produce, is becoming more and more in demand. Understanding all of the aspects that have gone into the supply chain, that have gone into the production process, that have led to that final product. And our industry can really be able to leverage what agriculture has led with in being able to build that procurement and that recognition of that pipeline of all of the inputs to really show this is how we also maintain our sustainable industry.
Yep. On the technology side of things, what are some of the most promising technologies or innovations that the mining industry is using to reduce its emissions, either in terms of reducing what comes out or things like sequestration or carbon storage to lock away what has been produced?
There are many, many different pieces of technology that industry is leveraging and utilising. Everything from the application of hydrogen in our transport, in our fleets, looking through as well to the application of having wind turbines and solar panels be able to provide that electrical input to sustainable energy sources. You're also seeing the application of carbon capture and storage, and our own state has before it new legislation to look at how we can, as a state, build on that carbon capture and storage opportunity. We're also looking at how we can continue to work with efficiencies in being able to do remote mining, being able to look at the logistics and supply chains to be able to reduce those overall emissions. A really strong focus on what industry can be delivering. Again, there's much that we can learn from each other, and I really love those opening comments and that scene setting around talking with each other and understanding the technologies that are being developed and how they might be able to be utilised. So for instance, the GPS guidance on the tractors, being able to do the seeding and the harvesting, now leveraged to be able to be used on the haul trucks in the mining context, to be able to have that remote application and be able to drive those efficiencies within our industry is just one of those examples of where we can collaborate together and leverage off the knowledge that we both bring.
I think that supply chain space is really exciting in terms of the potential to learn from each other.
Absolutely.
Another and very important one is occupational health and safety, which is front of mind for both industries. To what extent have you been able to develop or are developing now technologies that will help reduce instances of OHS breaches and injuries?
There's been an incredibly strong focus over the last decade within our industry on that occupational health and safety and the return of all of our team members to ensure that we are continuing to build a safety culture. And you've seen a lot of work within our organisations about building that safety culture in the conversations that we have with our team members, how we structure our meetings, the work that we do in being able to measure and report and being able to demonstrate demonstrate, being able to learn from each other of those skills. I think together I think what our industry has undertaken is really shown how you can focus and improve that safety record. And I think together being able, again, leverage that knowledge and skills that we have, the toolkits that we've developed in and alongside agriculture, to really being able to ensure we provide safe work environments. We're all, in a West Australian context, there's a real tenacity and a sense of being able to get the job done. And I think what we need to focus on, and I think agriculture has that as the same part of its ingrained DNA, is that sort of innovation, that can-do attitude. And sometimes in the safety space, that can become challenging. So the more that we can be talking together, to be doing those safety moments, to being able to share the data across the different industries, I really feel that that will build on the safety culture together.
Yep. We had this morning a very interesting presentation on the potential of artificial intelligence. In fact, not just the potential, but the capability right now. What are some of the areas where you're seeing that deployed in the mining industry that we should be aware of?
Yeah, and again, that comes to obviously the sensors on our vehicles, and being able to be predictive in the data that we capture within our safety systems, to be able to be predicting what could potentially occur from what we've seen analysed to start off with. And I think what AI is being able to provide is that longitudinal analysis across the data that we've gathered over many, many generations now, to show us some of those trends, or to show us where some of those pieces might start to emerge, particularly in the maintenance of our assets and the maintenance of our tools and equipment. The artificial intelligence is really coming into its own to be able to do that, again, that predictive analysis, because obviously everyone in the safety environment knows that what we want to be able to do is prevent that injury from ever occurring. And AI is a great tool to be able to leverage, even in the imagery that it is able to provide for us, in being able to look and assess the images of different pieces of equipment on the different ways in which we're interacting, to show us potentially where those challenges might come from. But again, to build those layers of data through that system, to get in front, to be able to predict, as opposed to being able to fix in the moment.
Obviously, creating safe workplaces is key to attract people to work in them.
Absolutely.
As are exciting them about some of the technologies that are available to be deployed in the industry, and some of the positive contributions industries, of course, make. How are you going attracting people into the mining industry through the courses that funnel into it, and then in terms of the industry itself?
Again, there's a really great synergy between that skill shortage that we're all experiencing, our global search for talent. Indeed, the skills across both of our industries are very interchangeable. We've had a very strong focus on being able to invest in STEM-based programs, and being able to look at the opportunities within technology, the types of computing programming, the types of robotics, the types of automation. Many would be surprised, particularly those new to Perth, that there's mining happening on the terrace of Perth, the big main street just up the road, in the remote operations centres of BHP, and at the airport, in the remote operations centre of Rio Tinto, and indeed at Fortescue, down the road at the end of the terrace. So a lot of mining actually happens right here in the CBD of Perth. And it really is that leveraging of the technology to be able to show that skill base, and to teach a new generation of how different agriculture looks, because it's not the agriculture of our day, but again, that really sophisticated use of technology, that sophisticated use of data predictability, that sophisticated use of which fertilisers, which seeds, which has all come about with the utilisation of artificial intelligence, predictive analysis, and understanding more about what is actually taking place in our soils. And the same goes for our mining, and what we can be able to see in the imagery and analysis that we can do across the scanning and across the mapping of the resources themselves.
Yep.
So I really see that in attracting, it's about telling our story differently.
Yep.
It's about reimagining who we are.
Yep.
That same sense, which I really want to come back to, of curiosity and can-do tenacity that built a pipeline in Western Australia at the turn of the century, more than 100 years ago. We needed to get water to the goldfields, which is more than 600 kilometres inland.
Yep.
And we came together and we built a pipeline from scratch. We put the weirs, the dams, indeed we built a port, and today that technology is still being utilised to deliver that program.
Yep.
And I think what it shows is what we can do when we bring those communities
Yep.
together.
Rebecca, there's so much on the agenda today of shared interest, digitising supply chains, reducing waste, tackling emissions, cultivating trust, the impact of responsible
Amazing,
investing. So much we can learn from each other. Thank you for being here to help us along that journey, and we wish you all success with your industry and to very successful collaborations going forward.
I just want to say a big thank you for being here, and I know that none of you really thought that you would come away thinking that you had really strong common interest with mining, but indeed together we actually do have a lot of collaboration, and we have done that through many centuries. So
Yep.
Thanks for the opportunity to talk with you today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.